Welcome to Taste Buds, writer and foodie. And today I'm speaking with the Babka King of LA, Shimi Aaron. So, Shimi, so nice to see you. How are you doing?
Hi, Deborah. You're looking great. How are you?
I'm I get to talk about food, so how could I not be good, right?
I know, that's the best topic.
So, tell me, what inspired your love of food and cooking?
My family, my mom mostly. Um, I just remember growing up around a lot of food, and food was a very big, still very big part of my family's day-to-day life. It's always the question is always like, what are we going to eat today? What are you making today? It's either what are we going to eat today, and then when my mom speaks to other family members, oh, what did you cook today, or what are you making tomorrow? What are you doing for Shabbat? It's always like a big part of our culture, and I think for me it was a little bit more, but I think my family um, resented it a little bit that I was so attached to food and wanting to explore it even further. I think growing up, being a chef or being a baker, it wasn't like the common thing to do. It wasn't a career, I want to say. So I think they were trying to push me away from there and succeeded, but
Not
I,
forever.
I not forever. So I did discover it really by mistake that not by mistake that I can actually do it, but by mistake that I can actually do it for a living and get paid for it. Um,
So, what was
yeah,
that shift? So, where did you go from it was something I loved to it was something I loved and also did?
I decided at some point in 2014, I figured that I wanted to leave New York. I was living in New York at the time for 12 years, and I decided to leave New York and explore other, places in the world. And I decided to move to England. And I was in London, on and off. I was mostly in Europe, but traveling, my family is I have a family in London. So I went in and out of London all the time and traveled in Europe. But I remember that when I came to England, I didn't have a job and I didn't know what I'm going to do. I literally moved to England because I just fell in love with London. And then I figured I can travel in Europe. I didn't actually move to London. I moved to Europe, I want to say. But London was my base. And I cooked a dinner, Shabbat dinner for my family one night, for my cousin and her, kids and her husband. And they decided to hire me to cook for them every week for Shabbat. So then I started realizing that, it might be better than I think that it is. And, the word spread, and people came for dinner and started talking to me about it. And I started taking it more seriously and started cooking for other people and created my own page. And at some point decided to start exploring the industry more and was introduced to many chefs and started hanging out with chefs, very successful chefs in England. Um, Eran Tibi, who's my best friend, who took me under his wing and decided to teach me all the things that I didn't know because, I knew food, but I didn't know what it comes with, as a profession. Yeah, but this was the shifting moment. This was the moment when I realized I was like, oh, okay, I can get paid for that. And that was the beginning.
So, what is your uh, okay, I'm going to ask this two part. So, what is your favorite thing to cook? And what is your favorite thing to cook that you can explain easily so people who are tuning in can create for themselves? And if
My
it's the
fa-
same thing, great.
you know what? I cannot escape the Babka. So I think there's something, and I was just teaching today at Tech College at LATTC today. I was teaching a class, and I said something that I honestly believe in. Uh, is that you really have to love what you do, especially when it's food. And I think food is the number one profession that you really, really have to love it when you do it, especially because it's something that you let people eat. So it's not necessarily something you just give someone and they look at it. They literally put this energy into their body. So to me, this energy is super important. And it's, I think I cannot escape the babka, because the babka is still, when I make, although I've made thousands and thousands of babka already in the last 3 years, I still enjoy it. I still very much enjoy it, and I think it's the reason that it's changed my life, and it, launched my career as a chef and introduced me to people. So I still have a lot of respect to the babka, and I love baking it. It's very therapeutic for me, and I'm someone who hated baking. So
And I feel like because I've interviewed you before, so I know the babka backstory, but can you give the 2-minute version about how you became Babka King of LA?
yes. Very, very simply, I started baking it. So my cousin's nanny, who handed me a recipe one day and said, I saw her doing it and I fell in love with the aesthetics of it. And she gave me the recipe. I practiced for 2 years, perfected this recipe. Then started traveling in Europe and doing workshops. And then when I came to Hungary, to Budapest, the BBC Good Food magazine decided to write about what I did with the babka. And people actually bought tickets to come see me baking it. Then I understood that something happened. And right before the pandemic, I decided that I wanted to move back to America. I knew that I didn't want to go back to New York. Something in me knew that I should come to LA. And then I find myself here, and I was contacted by Bill Addison from the LA Times. He did an article about Jody Kalam, my Palestinian friend, who wrote a Palestinian cookbook, and he did a whole thing on Palestinian cookbooks, and found me through her page because she posted some of my babkas on her stories. And he contacted me, said, can I try them? And I said, absolutely. He tried about 6 or 7 of different flavors. And I was contacted by him about a week ago, and he said, I want to write about it. And I thought this is going to be something, like, small, modest, and then, I wake up to like a whole article on a full page on the Sunday Times. So um, that's the story of the babka here. And from, selling 3 babkas a week, I started selling 300 babkas a week. So it was a shock. It was a good shock, but it was still a shock because I moved here during the pandemic. I moved here 3 months into the pandemic. So it's absolutely a shock.
But you just said that you didn't love baking. I mean, now you do,
Mm.
right? I hope.
I
No?
hated baking.
Right?
It's not that I didn't like, I just hated, I stayed away from it because it's so particular, and it's so, has to be so precise. And cooking is not like that. Cooking, I do, with my eyes closed. You can put 2 ingredients in front of me, and somehow I'm going to make it delicious. And then for me it's a given. Cooking is a given. But with baking, I needed to live up to the expectations, because yes, I baked amazing babka, but what's next? So I literally, people started referring to me as a baker, and I thought, okay, I have to become a baker now. And I just told myself everything that I know about baking in the last 3 years.
Awesome. I love that. Okay, so I have follow-up questions. So how many flavors of babka are there?
um Well, there's the classic one, which is the chocolate ganache and the hazelnut. Then I make it vegan. I have the halva that I make with pecans and shredded chocolate. Then I have my poppy seeds. I have another one that is just a different shape. It's like shaped like a flower, but it's the same like the classic. Then I have my pizza babka, I have my pesto babka, and I have my savory, which is the za'atar seasoning with feta cheese, Israeli feta cheese, and shredded mozzarella.
And now I'm hungry. But I
I'm
expected that to
starving.
happen from this conversation. So other than babka, I'm taking babka off the table for this next question. What is your favorite thing to cook? You're hungry, you're tired, you want to eat something. What is that? And can you
Mm.
share a recipe?
Yes, I can share a recipe. I think, well, my favorite vegetable to cook is eggplant. And I think eggplant is super versatile, and I always cook it. I think the best recipe that I can give anyone is just like, it needs to be charred. Just use a fork to like make like tiny holes in it so it's not going to explode in your face. And then just roast it either in the oven, or if you have a barbecue, on the barbecue until it gets really soft. Peel it and then create a marinade of like olive oil, vinegar, salt, um, tons of herbs. I use mint, I use dill, I use parsley. I change it up every time and let it sit, in a marinade overnight. And then the next day you can use, feta cheese on it. You can use tahini. You can use pomegranate seeds. I mean, literally pomegranate molasses. Really, really everything. But I love it with tahini. Just tahini, pomegranates, loads of greens. It's super easy to make and always delicious.
And it sounds like it's healthy.
Yeah, it's veggies. I grew up, I spoke about it today actually because somebody saw my cauliflower recipe and they said, "Wow, you took a whole cauliflower and you sliced it in the middle like a cross shape in the middle, and I stuffed it with beef." And they said, "How did you like nobody works with vegetables like this?" And I'm Israeli. I grew up like this. We cook loads of vegetables, and I like, there's something about vegetables that I appreciate so much from the place I come from, that I love to take vegetables and actually turn them into the main course of the meal instead of actually doing meat, or that I love, but meat or chicken or anything that any other chef is doing. But there's something about vegetables that I just adore, and I love to give it the respect it deserves.
Nice. And my mouth is watering just thinking about healthy food. But it's like babka and vegetables feels like night and day, but you do sweet and savory babka as well. So
I do, and I don't like sweets actually. I think we talked about it. I think I told you that I don't like chocolate.
I yes, and I think I also gave just surprise face when you mentioned
I
that
know,
the last time.
I
So
know.
but it's you love food. So what do you think it is? I mean, why you love food, why people love food, why we like talking about food. What is it about food that's such a great conversation starter?
Yes, I think, I always bring it up. I grew up in a house where we never sat around the table to have a meal together besides Shabbat. And I was always jealous of my friends who were sitting with their parents. And for us, it was like, okay, you go in, you sit, you eat now, and then the other person would eat. And I always wanted this experience of sitting all of us around the table, but it's not my parents. It's not my dad. My mom wasn't like this. She cooks, but it's not the tradition of like all sitting together every day to have like two meals a day all together. And I remember as a child, I used to do the whole thing, on like summer breaks. My mom used to come from work, and everything was like on the table, and the cloth, and everything was organized, and candles and flowers. I think this is how I fell in love with food. I fell in love with food through the ceremony of like the whole ceremony of what's leading to the food that goes on the table after that, because I knew what food was doing, but I knew that it has to be in a certain way in order to create this conversation that you're talking about. You have to get people sitting around the table. It's not just like snacking or grabbing food. That's, you need to have people sitting. And I think this is where it started for me. But I think as much as I grew and moved to New York and had my neighbors and other friends, everyone used to tell me like, people don't do things like that in New York. Like they don't cook food and invite people or their neighbors to like, I love sharing food. And um there's something about it that makes people use other senses that they don't usually use. And I think most people are eating and then they eat in this for the sake of just like not be hungry. And then you go to a restaurant and it's a whole production. For me, the whole production is all day long. Like I set up the table for breakfast for myself and I'm by myself and I do it for myself all the time. My plate will always look beautiful. It's not just for Instagram or for photos. I need to look at food that looks beautiful. It makes me more want to eat it. But going back to what you said about the conversation, I always say that I think it brings people together in a way that nothing else does. I compare food to music. I think it's a universal language. I think everyone agrees on things when they're delicious or not. If they don't agree, they're going to have a conversation about it, um, which will lead to certain people who never thought they can actually have a conversation with each other to have a conversation. And I think that's the power of food.
Very well put. Now, before we wrap, my favorite question: what do you know about cooking, food, baking? You know, your choice. What do you know now that you wish you knew before you started?
That I can do it that well.
Oh, you didn't know.
No, I had no idea. I had no idea that it was, I had an idea that I can do it very well if I put my mind into it, because this is how I do everything. It's like when I told you that I became a baker. If I decided this is what I need to do and this is what I want to do, I'm going to put like everything into it and I'm going to make it happen. But before that, I didn't know. People used to tell me that my food was great, but it's my friends and it's people who are close to me. It's not people who are willing to pay, the prices that I charge for my babka, or the prices that I charge for, a dinner that I do, a private dinner that I do. And when that happened, then I realized that I'm probably doing a great job.
I think definitely you are doing a great job. I so appreciate your time. Please tell people where they can find you, where they can learn more about you, your babka, and your food adventures.
Oh, everyone can go to my website, www.shimiaaron.com, and read about me and my history. Or you can also just follow me on Instagram and see everything that I do. I share recipes, mostly recipes for my family, cookbook that I enjoy doing, because, we need to do that. We need to carry those recipes on and on and on as much as we can.
Absolutely. Well, and thank you so much, Shimi Aaron, and thank
Thank you,
you
Deborah.
for tuning in to Taste Buds with Deb. Don't miss an episode. Subscribe on YouTube or your favorite podcast channel. And you can go to jewishjournal.com to get recipes and read the articles that go with each episodes. And you can also learn more if you go to tastebudswithdeb.com. Thank you for making me hungry. Guess what
Always
I'm going
nice
to go
chatting with
to
you.
now?
Thank you
um,
again.
Thank you so much. Bon appetit. I feel like I should say something like bon appetit, but it feels not me. How about go eat?
Maybe I'll just say betavon in Hebrew, and that means like enjoy your food, and
I think that's great. Until next time, enjoy your